All right, and we're back, and we're with Griffin Paulin, the owner-operator of Mirin off Frankfurt Avenue, a very popular Louisville restaurant. Jay, we wanted to bring someone who had an intimate knowledge of the restaurant scene here in Louisville because that's something that's really important to us, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Lots of foodies in this office, and Mirin is a really popular spot for a bunch of our agents. So we really appreciate you being here and being willing to speak with us. So
yeah,
thank
of course. Thanks for having me.
No, absolutely. And, Louisville, it's such a part of Louisville culture. I mean, it's kind of a bit of an undiscovered city when you talk to people regionally and nationally. They're like, oh, you're from Louisville, the Derby, or oh, you're from Louisville Slugger, Muhammad Ali, whatever. They don't necessarily realize just how vibrant the food scene is here in Louisville. And people like, my real estate kind of, contacts from around the country, they're always completely blown away at just how great the local food scene is here. So absolutely, Griffin, it means a lot for you to join us here. So let's just get right into it, man. I got a question that I think probably people that follow you really would like to know the answer to. And first question: when did you found your first restaurant?
It was almost 3 years ago.
Okay,
which is crazy that it's been that long. It kind of feels like it was just yesterday, really. And the way it started was I had been pseudo partners with a really good friend of mine on a previous restaurant, and it didn't make it very long at all. It actually made it about 7 months, I think. Really, really short-lived. And I took a couple of jobs after that, just chef jobs, and it was great. I worked for great people, and I was really happy, but at the end of it, I kind of realized that I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted to work for myself.
Well, it's a grind.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a little bit of money saved up, not very much at all, from a couple different sources. I think I had like $27,000 total. And I was like, hey, I'm just going to take a shot. We're going to see what happens.
Sure.
So I got the first one open with $11 left to my name when we opened the door.
And that's like build out everything. Like stocked fridge, employees hired, ready to serve. But you got to move product at that point because you got a light bill coming next month.
Absolutely. And we did not, in fact, move product.
Oh, wow.
It was such a slow start. And I had one guy who was on board with me, and he's been with me for like 5 years now, multiple stops. His name's Michael Mackiness. I don't know if he'll listen to this, but if he does, shout out to him.
Sure.
And there were times where I literally couldn't pay him. And I would just look at him and, hey, man, if I pay you, we close. And he was like, hey, I'm good.
Wow.
I believe in this. I believe in this vision. It was tough. It was tough. We had, for the first probably year, I'd say the LG&E guy came by every 2.5 months to let us know we had 30 minutes to pay, or he was shutting the place down.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and
Talk about pressure. That's as high as it gets.
This is a lot of pressure, man. I was going through these fits where I was so stressed out. I was so stressed out all the time. I would get this ringing behind my ears, and then I would basically just like collapse for like 30 seconds because I was so stressed out.
That is wild.
But after getting through all of that,
it's like red line blood pressure right there. I think is what that means.
it was wild, man. And I think it worried my employees more than it worried me. Because we'd just be in the middle of cooking and I just go down,
man.
But
so, did you ever think about quitting? Like, did you?
Every day,
just closing it up.
Yeah, absolutely, every day. There were days I couldn't even get out of bed. And like I just didn't even go into the restaurant because I couldn't even do it. And going into the restaurant would have solved my problems, or at least some of them.
Well, this is it's a crazy story to hear from you because, fast forward to now, like you said, it's only been 3 years, but Mirin's a really successful restaurant, just opened another location in New Albany. And so it's like, how do you square that? Like, what happened? What was the moment where the trajectory started to change?
When I went on Chopped, I didn't win and I didn't perform particularly well. But that was literally the moment that happened. The whole restaurant turned around.
Really?
Started.
So why do you think that is?
I don't know.
Obviously you're on TV. It's free publicity. It's legitimacy. It's whatever.
Food Network fanaticism, I guess. I don't know. I think a lot of people, they'll watch the Food Network and think, this is what cooking's like, and it doesn't have it doesn't really have anything to do with it, to be honest. But and then there's the Louisville wants so badly to be recognized for the great things that we offer, and I'm like that too.
I agree with 100%.
That. So when you see your own, and a bunch of people from the city of Louisville went on Chopped. I think I was the first or second of like maybe 20.
Sure.
but that they put me first, it was kind of like, oh, Louisville is getting something from our food scene. This is great. And I think the community is really welcoming to that and really wants that. So there was a lot of support there, which was really helpful. And then, of course, it's also helpful that my guys are great. You know, I have a great staff. So when people come in the door, it's probably not going to be the last time that they do that.
Right.
So all of those things, I think, led to us inevitably, you know, being able to pay off that tax bill and that light bill and all of that.
That's the first step, yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and that's really interesting. You know, because you're right. There are a few, and I can think of, you know, a few off the top that have been on Food Network, and I think you're right. I think there is some fanaticism associated there.
Absolutely.
Some legitimacy, but like you said, I mean, I think that's the mark of a good restaurant is when you go once, do you retain that customer? Because you know the ticket that they're going that particular visit, it's not going to keep your doors open very long. You have to have that return kind of following, that cult following to keep it vibrant, to keep it growing, to keep it moving. And that's pretty interesting. I also really agree with your point about us desperately wanting to be recognized as a city.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because we're very small. We're a small city, okay?
Comparatively, yeah.
We always... I don't know if you guys recognize this. I recognize it in myself. I always find myself talking about Louisville like it's bigger than it is.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Number one. But, you know, the size of your city really doesn't mean anything. I mean, it can be a great place to live and be 50,000 people. You know, I don't think Louisville technically really has 1 million people, but Louisville Metro does.
Sure.
And so Jefferson County, and we kind of like give it the nice little end around. But that's awesome, man. So okay, you worked in the restaurant industry, correct?
I did.
And that preceded your foray into ownership.
Correct.
You know, you touched on that just a little bit. So, to talk a little bit more about your experience working for someone else in the industry and kind of why you were moved to be an owner so early.
Sure. I think I started working in restaurants. Well, I did when I was 16 years old. I started working at a place called Tony Roma's. It was ribs and seafood, right? Yeah. And I was a host there, and then I became the host manager, which basically meant, you know, I sat in the office and wrote the schedule and pretended I worked for like $11 an hour or something like that. But I was bored. You know, when you work for a corporation or a chain, especially in the restaurant industry, you answer the phone and you have to answer it the same way every single time.
Oh, yeah.
And I got tired of hearing myself say that. I got tired of doing that. And one day there was this like, I don't really know what else to call it other than a mutiny in the kitchen. And like 9 people quit at once.
On the same day.
All on the same day.
I gotta believe that happens in the restaurant industry more than you realize as a patron.
When your employees aren't being taken care of, it's guaranteed to happen at some point.
There's just a lot of turnover. That's what people talk about. There's a lot of turnover. Now, I'm sure. I mean, we probably both, and you probably can speak to this better than I can. But I've been going to some of the same restaurants for more than a decade, and you see the same server there a decade later. You know that they take care of their employees.
Sure, absolutely. We're blessed to not have very much turnover at Mirin, and we can get into why that is. But back to the Tony Roma's thing, I just ended up back in the kitchen making salads and like dropping things in the fryer. At one point, I was breading something and I'd lost a glove in there. And that ended up going into the fryer and then going out to the table, and somebody cut into something fried, and my nitrile glove was in their dish. And that was my very first cooking shift. But then I kind of just kept doing it because, I didn't grow up wealthy or anything like that. And I wanted to go hang out with my friends and do high school stuff. I wanted to go drink beer. I wanted to, go on road trips. I wanted to do regular high school stuff. So I just kind of kept cooking. And then I ended up working for my uncle, who was a longtime Louisville chef. He was a chef in the city for like 35 years. Okay. And he kind of put me in the right direction to start making a little more money. And when I was 20, I found out my son was going to be born. And he's 10 now. And it was at that point that I was kind of like, hey, it's time to take this serious.
Sure.
I went a couple of more years, and I was just doing it. I didn't love it. I didn't really care that much about it, but I knew I was pretty good at it. I could make decent money doing it, especially for, a uneducated, for the most part, person. I don't have a college degree. I don't have anything like that. So then one day I just woke up and decided that I loved it and that I was never going to stop doing it, and this was all I wanted to do.
Well, life changes you. I mean, that's the thing about maturity, and so often they say, entrepreneurs specifically, weren't the best students. You know, you hear the stories about, you know, Mark Zuckerberg dropping out at Harvard and how he just, you know, he wanted to do what he had a passion for. And all it took was finding that one thing to flip that switch. I mean, he could have been, you know, probably, you know, a computer programmer or some sort of engineer at, you know, Fortune 500 and made $500,000 to $1 million a year working for someone else, or he could be a multi-billionaire,
right?
Inventing Facebook. And so it sounds to me like a little bit, right? You know, if you take that, you know, I was a less than completely responsible youth. Then you had a son, right? Life changed a little bit, and you know, spent some time soul searching, and then ultimately it clicked. And that led you to probably ownership in real estate, or not real estate, but in the restaurant industry.
I would say that's accurate. That's very accurate. And I think people find you know, if you want to call it a calling, I think people find that in different ways, whether that's going to school and studying a variety of subjects and deciding which one they want to focus on, and then through life experiences going from there. Or, you know, you could just be forced into something or feel like you're forced into something and it turns out you love it.
Well, it's like your skills didn't change, it's your perception changed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And it's funny how that works. I mean, I wasn't all that dissimilar. You know, I grew up. Your uncle sounds a lot like my father. My father's in the real estate business. I kind of took the industry for granted. I didn't want to do exactly what he wanted to do. I was stubborn and petulant and wanted to do my own thing until one day I realized that I was being a little foolish, and what I was really good at, I actually did have a passion for when I got out of my own way.
Sure.
And so I can relate to the story for sure.
I think there's two types of people as far as what you do for a living. You either live to work or you work to live. And some people will go through their lives working a job that they don't necessarily like or they don't necessarily care about because they love what they do outside of their job, whether that's raising their family or traveling or whatever it may be. And then there are people who absolutely love what they do, and their entire life is based on wanting to do what it is they're doing for a living and for a career. And I think I fall into that second category now.
So it doesn't feel like work to you?
Oh, no, it still feels like work. It definitely still feels like work. But to be honest with you, the further up you go in the restaurant industry, the less you cook. So, like,
I was going to ask you how much cooking you actually do on a daily basis now.
Not much.
Okay.
And, you know, for a while, up until maybe a couple of weeks ago, actually, I'd kind of lost my passion for it. I just didn't want to. And I realized the other day, at the end of one of my days, I'd worked like a 10 or 11-hour day. And at the end of the day, I knew I was busy all day long, and I was working all day long. But at the end of the day, I was like, I don't know what I did today.
It was a blur.
No clue. I looked at my phone. I had answered 45 phone calls in a day. That's so many. Like, that is a lot of phone calls to answer, not to mention all the text messages that I had to send, all of the things I have to do on a daily basis. It doesn't lead to much time to actually cook.
Yeah.
So a couple of weeks ago, I decided basically to just turn my phone off, and I went to the store and I bought a bunch of ingredients, and I didn't know what I was going to do with them. I didn't know what I was going to make, but I knew that I was going to create something. And when I did that, it kind of like reinvigorated me. And at that moment, I decided, I'm an idiot. I'm going to open another restaurant. And we're about 6 weeks out from opening a third restaurant now, actually.
Nice.
So in Louisville, right?
In Louisville,
Okay.
yeah.
So hold on. That was how long ago?
That was a couple of weeks ago.
So you're from inception to opening, we're talking 3 months.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, my mind works a little. It's weird. I'll have concepts and I'll know what I want to do years out, but I never act on it or take it at all serious. It's just rolling around in there.
Yeah, of course. So this is an idea that's been working on you for some time.
Sure, I can relate to this for sure. This sounds like the way my mind works. Like, you have an idea for the longest time, but then when it's time to go, it just all happens.
Yeah, it's total impulse decision. Okay, now's the time to do this. And you know how I always make these decisions is I have a dream about it, and then I wake up and I decide that's what I'm doing. So, yeah, I'm opening a third restaurant in the next couple of weeks. We actually...
Got location?
We do, yeah.
Okay. Is this like... I mean, can we talk about this?
Yeah, we could talk about it a little bit.
I was going to say, how much can you say? Yeah.
I can't get into too many of the details just yet because there's some legalities that we're working out.
Can you tell us anything with respect to the concept?
Yeah,
like what type
absolutely.
Of restaurant?
Yeah, it's a fried chicken joint.
Fried chicken joint. Okay.
Yeah, in the Highlands. And actually, one of your realtors actually got this spot locked up for me, which is great. Shout out to Bobby.
Nice.
He's great. I also play soccer with him.
Yeah.
He's a He's a good guy. But yeah, it's in the Highlands. I can't say the exact location yet.
Okay.
We have put down the deposit on it, and we are signing the lease today or tomorrow. But until we do all of that,
yeah, cool.
I don't want to say the exact spot.
So Highlands chicken joint. Okay. Is there any more specifics? Because obviously, like, chicken places have kind of proliferated the last few years.
Sure.
You've got. I'm not going to speak to your competition's name here, but I mean, is there a specific spin on it that you've taken? Or?
Yeah, there's a couple of different things we want to do, but we're going to keep it really simple. It's going to be really just fried chicken, a couple of sides, and then we're going to have some more interesting wrinkles to it. We're going to do some things with caviar. We're going to do some things with champagne.
Oh, wow.
You're also going to be able to come into this place and pick up a bucket of chicken and a 6-pack of beer and be on your way.
Okay, so packaged liquor?
Packaged liquor, yeah. Yeah,
Sounds
absolutely.
cool.
Yeah. It sounds like every bachelor's dream, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
and the location is perfect for this too.
I'm like a self-professed fried chicken connoisseur. Just saying.
Well, you'll have to come check it out. We're intentionally not competing with Royals, Joella's. We're not doing hot chicken.
Yeah.
This is going to be a fried chicken joint.
I mean, I like hot chicken, but like just straight up
got enough of it.
grandma's fried
So,
chicken is legit.
Is it mostly like most of it's going to be carry out? Or are you having like a dine-in space?
We'll
or
have a
is it-
dine-in space, but the space is really small.
So mostly carry out.
It'll be mostly carry out.
That's cool, though.
Yeah, I brought in a partner for it. He's another Louisville chef. I can't really say who he is yet, but a lot of people know him. He's got a successful restaurant in this city, so I'm excited to work with him. And yeah, we
breaking news here today.
Yeah,
About
absolutely.
that.
So I won't make you give away too much, like your partner's name and that sort of thing. But I do want to backtrack for a second to something you said a little while ago. Not having gone, not having like a degree in business or anything like that, right? So what is it like going from, just like working in the restaurant to having the idea, like you said, having the dream, knowing that you wanted to have your own restaurant, that was the next avenue for you. What would you say to someone that's out there that has similar aspirations but feels kind of held back because they don't have a business degree? They're like, I don't know how to start a business, so obviously this can't be for me.
In my experience, the one thing that really worked for me, and I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to file with the Secretary of State. I didn't know how to pay business taxes. I didn't know how to do filings. I didn't know how to do any of that. The one thing that really worked for me was going into government offices and saying, hey, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Help me. They want to help you.
They do.
They don't want to be misled. They just, like, the people in those offices specifically do want to help you. And I had a lot of trial and error. But
I think that's a lost art too, because everybody wants everything to be available online nowadays.
Sure.
And like specifically, I've started lots of businesses, and what I can tell you is, whether it be a real estate company. I mean, most of them in the real estate space, but investments or this or that or the other. I mean, literally, it could be spelled out like as plainly as they can possibly, but it doesn't fill all the blanks. Like you as a business owner, with all the questions and all the information you have running through your head about how your specific business works and all the nuance, you still don't know.
No.
Like you can't. You have to talk to somebody and say, no, that's not what I mean. This is what I mean. This is what I need help with. I think there's a lost art to that, and I think.
Or tell me if I'm wrong.
Tell me if I'm wrong. Am I stupid? Am I doing something dumb?
Yeah.
Like
I want to do it right.
I want to do it right. I just don't get it.
And doing it solo has to be its own challenge too, because I mean, I have to imagine, running a restaurant is a little bit different than other forms of business.
Absolutely.
I mean, not only do you have to run the business side of it, but especially in the beginning, I'm betting you were, intimately involved in the day-to-day operations, probably doing tons of cooking. You had 100 things to worry about on top of making sure it was a functioning business that was paying its taxes, like you said. So how is it different now that you've got a partner on board versus doing it yourself?
Oh, man, it is so much better. When the buck stops with you, it can be really stressful. And especially when, in my case, I am the accountant. I could do basic math. I can use a spreadsheet, but I don't know how to do all of this stuff. I do all of the social media. I handle the day-to-day. I do the costing. I do all of that stuff. So just having someone else, even as a sounding board, even if they don't even provide any real insight.
Just be like, is this right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is perfect. It's great. It's great. I wish I had it this entire time, but I'm really grateful that I didn't and don't with Mirin, because there was a time where I really thought we weren't going to make it a couple more days even. Somehow we did, and I almost brought on a partner just for some financial, relief. We were behind. And I'm so glad that I didn't, because now I can look at that and say, this is something that I did. And, obviously I had help. Yeah. I had a ton of help, whether it was family, whether my dad came in and made tables for us, or one of my employees who went 2 weeks without a paycheck because I couldn't pay him, you know, and he's still there. And, obviously you make it up to these people, but looking back on it, it was kind of like, wow, I really did that.
It kind of like survives as almost like a monument, like a testament to that moment in your life where you knew you can make this possible. So it's kind of cool to look back at.
I mean, because you're not done with the hardship, right? Like we've never arrived, right? We're all a work in progress, and we all know business owners. I mean, I personally remember the really hard days, and know that it can go back to that, and that's part of the drive that keeps you from going back, is knowing how hard it was, but also reminding yourself that you can overcome some things. Because look, I did it then. Gabe, you may have not have heard this story, but when I first got into real estate, the sky was falling. Literally, 2008, like banks were closing, like the economy was on the brink of collapse. Yeah, and I'm selling every bank foreclosure I can sell, for $700 and $800 commissions just to keep the lights on.
Because it was the only business to be had.
And not only that, I'm having to cut the grass. I'm having to rekey the locks. I'm having to trash the stuff out, taking stuff. I got stuff in the back of my truck going to the dump so that I can put this house on the market. And literally, the banks that have all the money, because the federal government had given it to them, they weren't paying me back. I mean, I'm sending reimbursement requests, and they're not paying me. And so, I ran up $50,000 worth of receivables to the largest bank in the United States, and they're my number one client. And if I sue them to get my money, they're going to fire me.
Oh, yeah, you want even more business.
So it's like I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul. And literally, I had a contractor that worked with me in this, and I just said, dude, I paid him $10,000 at a time, which is a lot of money, but it's not my money. And I'm just like, he's probably holding another 15 or 20 in receivables from me. I've got 50 I'm owed from the bank, and I'm selling houses as fast as I can to keep up. If I stopped selling, I can't pay my bills. I mean, everybody was getting something except me. I got zero, and the guy that was working for me got less than he was owed. So I understand people that are willing to invest in you and your idea and your business to their own potential detriment. That those are the most loyal people.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
That you could ever meet.
But don't you get to the point where you look back on those hardships really fondly?
Oh, dude. I mean, I
do.
I remember not sleeping at night, literally laying in bed with my wife next to me, she having just a fraction of a clue of what's happening, thinking about how I'm going to pay our mortgage, because we just got married, just bought a house. I was doing well until I wasn't, and then thinking is my wife going to have to move out of her house because I can't make the mortgage? And I've gotten myself into this trying to be successful. I could have played it safe and probably wouldn't have found myself in this mess, but it's like you end up threading the needle, and
kind of feels like the weight of the world at that point.
So that was December of 2009, and 3 days in a row, I got a $20, a $20, and a $10,000 check from the largest bank in the United States.
Oh, they finally paid you back.
And I just went,
I went, take a nap?
Dude, I went limp. Yes. I shut the phone off for the afternoon and left the office and was just like, damn.
That's great, man.
Anyway.
Makes it all worth it.
No, I love hearing that about the employees, though, and I love hearing that he's still with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that guy, he oversees a bunch of the restaurants now, and he's great. Awesome. He's really, really great. All of my employees are, and we haven't lost anybody because we have a smart model, and if you treat your employees with any level of care, they'll care about you back. And that's such a lost art with a lot of people. It's all about me all the time, but really it's not about you, because you can't do it all. You just can't.
I feel like you hear people talk about, and it might just be cliche, but people talk about kitchens as a really dispassionate, kind of cutthroat environment sometimes.
It can be.
Maybe that's the easiest version of a kitchen is to just not care. But like you said, adding that extra layer, really makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. And, the number one way to get your people to care is to compensate them and to make sure that they're well taken care of and that their home life is okay. And they're not, it used to be like a badge of honor to be a line cook and to be dirty and to be poor and to be, and that it shouldn't be that way. That doesn't make any sense, And while small businesses cannot pay employees what they need to make in order to have a decent life, you can find ways that they do it. For instance, we have company cell phones. That is super helpful for people. We do a tip share based program. We have eliminated servers, so all of my cooks, on top of what I pay them,
get tips.
They get tips every night, and those tips can end up a lot.
Right.
So while I can't afford to pay you $20 an hour, you can still make that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can still make that. And it's great that the community, especially in Louisville, actively wants people to do that as well, because you don't have to tip at our place. Like, it's not even, you shouldn't even feel guilty if you don't. If you sit down and you have a nice meal and you fork your server over 20%, it kind of feels like you're supposed to, right? At our place, you don't have to, but these guys still make an extra $8-9 an hour.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
No,
that's great.
That is amazing. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I could kind of frame the question, and you can probably school me a little bit. I've just, on the surface, heard of some of the staffing challenges that Louisville restaurants have. Having so many local restaurants, shortage on cooks, shortage on service staff. It sounds to me like you've solved some of those issues. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you've solved some of those issues with culture. Something we talk about here within our company so much is culture. Gabe, a real estate company can be a cutthroat environment. Everybody here is self-employed, right? We're all competing over the same group of clients. Why would we come together collectively and support one another when you're really supporting your competition? Well, you do it because you genuinely care about the person next to you. And so answer for me, if you will, how you guys have gone about combating some of the challenges that the workforce provides you here, just because the fact that there's so many people that want to be in the restaurant business.
Yeah, sure. Well, first, there are 1,500 restaurants in Louisville.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
I don't think I ever really realized that.
Dude, there's a ton.
It's a lot.
Just to conceptualize that there's that many.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Wild. Now, my first restaurant has 5 employees, just 5. So if you can keep it small, you can reduce your turnover. But being that there's 1,500 restaurants in the city, and there's, we alluded to it earlier, 1 million people technically in Louisville Metro.
Sure.
But how many in these actual restaurant hotbeds? How many people are actually there?
Highlands, St. Matthews, Clifton, Crescent Hill.
Absolutely.
Germantown.
And that's where the majority of the restaurants are going to be, downtown, et cetera. So it is a very cutthroat business, but in order to keep your employees, it really just comes back to, we have completely open communication. My employees know more about my business than I do sometimes. And if you treat your employees like they're humans and not like they're dollar signs.
Bold take, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds pretty basic, doesn't it? But it's like,
no, it is.
Yeah.
It's hard.
But we've all worked for people who treated us like dirt, and maybe they didn't even know that they were doing it. But they're stressed out with.
They think it's the way you have to run a business.
Yeah, but ultimately, your employees run your business. You don't run your business, especially in the restaurant industry. Restaurants, movies, and politicians are the 3 things that people feel most comfortable just dumping on at any given time. Whether that's on the internet, whether it's via review, or just saying nasty things about places.
Realtors are out there too.
Yeah, I could see that. I've never had a bad experience with a realtor.
That's
though.
good. That's good. I'm glad.
But so your employees are the forefront of that. And they say that the customer is always right, but that's actually not true.
Sure.
Your employees are always right. And if they're not, then you're not going to keep them. And if you're not going to keep them, you're going to be constantly training people. And if you're constantly training people, then your product suffers. And if your product suffers, your customers go away. And if your customer goes away, your business closes.
And
I really agree with that. Go ahead.
I was going to say that, and that kind of chain of thinking that you're doing happens, that cascades in so many different directions. Like, if you care about your employees, they care about the brand image and your business, and that impacts how they treat customers. Even if they're having a bad day and their car broke down on the way to work, and and they're just pissed off and everything's going wrong, they're still going to give customers the highest amount of care that they can, because representing the business the right way is important to them, because the person that looks out for them cares about them, and that kind of thing happens.
Absolutely.
Well, and I will be the first one, and I don't know this would be interesting to get your opinion on this. A consumer dumps on one of your employees, in my case, one of my agents, okay? I know the consumer is wrong and my agent is right, or your employee is right and the consumer is wrong. Obviously, you have to handle any interaction in conflict with respect, or you get nowhere.
Yeah.
Okay, but beyond that, I am not going personally to subject my employee, my agent, my person who helps me run my business effectively, I'm not going to subject them to undue criticism and scrutiny. I'm not going to take the consumer side just because it's a consumer. I'm going to tell the consumer that I think they're wrong. That's me personally, because I know the value of my employee or agent that serves the general public is worth more to my business than one consumer. And even if that one consumer multiplies by talking bad about me, I'm not going to do anything to justify that.
Right.
I'm not going to be an asshole and tell them off so that they go tell everybody I'm a jerk.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm going to tell them I think they're wrong respectfully. I agree with so-and-so. Right. If Bobby did a good job, I'm going to say he did a good job. I don't know. What's your take on that?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you entirely. I think,
but that wasn't what we were taught growing up. Like business owner, the customer's always right. No, they're not.
It's changed though.
It has changed.
It's changed so much, and a lot of it has changed via social media and openness of these things. You know, anybody can hop on their phone right now and crap on anybody they want to crap on.
30 seconds.
In 30 seconds, and not even think twice about it. But what you find is when you respectfully give a little bit of pushback and say, from our perspective, here's how it happened. I'm truly sorry that you had a bad experience, and I am. When somebody has a bad experience in my restaurant, I don't want that. I don't want you to have had. I want you to enjoy it. Like we do this ultimately because we want people to like it. So I don't want you to have had a bad experience. But if you look at it from these other angles, like how can we figure this out? How can we make it right? And more often than not, when you do that, they'll delete the negative thing they said. They'll send you a message. Hey, I'm sorry. I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah.
Hey, cool. It's all good. And from my perspective, here's a gift card. I don't care. Here's a $25, $50 gift card. Whatever you need. Just come back in. We'll make it right.
Yeah.
Every challenge, every customer service opportunity, any potential issue is just that. It's an opportunity. Like you may win a consumer or a customer for life just by the way you handle that, because they're never going to have the opportunity to interact with the owner of most restaurants they go to. But when they have the opportunity to interact with you, you may win them over for good. You know, Gabe, how many Google reviews did we get out of that one terrible one?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember? I got a terrible Google review.
Yeah, I was just going to tell the story in brief. There was someone that left a really bad review on Google of our business, and at the time, it was the only review on Google. We had a bunch of reviews on Zillow, which is like the premier spot to get real estate reviews. But on Google, we had like one-star review, which looked terrible. It made our average 1. And it was a scathing review from someone who had a warped perspective. They were wrong. It's like you said, they were wrong. Instead of going after this person's throat, we appealed to all of our other clients and said, hey, you know, we would really love to hear from any of you who've had a good experience to help us balance our reviews.
Or bad.
Yeah.
And we got like hundreds
That's great.
In a week,
good reviews, and it just completely destroyed and
that's
drowned
great.
out the bad ones.
Yeah.
A lot of review sites are set up for people to complain. You know, most people, when they have an experience and they want to leave a review, it's either because it was a great experience or an awful one.
I feel like those are the only 2 times. Yeah.
That's why it's mostly 1 and 5 star reviews on any site.
Isn't that crazy?
The 2, 3, and 4 is a lost art.
Yeah.
It's a lost art.
Well, because most businesses treat a 4 like a 0.
Yeah, sure. Like we could have done something better. I'm okay with a 4. Give me a 4. I'm great with that.
Yeah.
But even you look at sites like Yelp, okay?
I was just going to ask you about Yelp.
Take the literal definition of Yelp.
I'm about to say Yelp is a pretty negative word when you think about it.
It's a cry of pain or alarm. You're not going on there to tell people I'm alarmed and pained by how great this was. You know?
That's the headphone thing doing that.
And Yelp, I've noticed, skews negative compared to Google or compared to Facebook, compared to...
It's their culture.
It's their culture. It's a negative culture, that's fine. But then the other thing Yelp does, and I'm not going to rant about Yelp, but the other thing they do is they'll call you and they'll say, well, hey, we can push your positive reviews to the top. And and we'll advertise for you on your competitor's Yelp page if you pay us a certain percentage per month. That's such garbage.
Yeah.
And I don't even get on our Yelp anymore. I don't even look at it. I don't care. If you've left me a bad review on Yelp, I have not seen it. If you've done it on something else, I have.
This is perfect because that's one of the things I was going to ask you too is, do you ever leave reviews when you go out to eat at other places?
No, God, no.
You don't?
God, no. Absolutely not. Once upon a time, I had a website that part of the website was review based, and that went so poorly for me. Like I don't want to get into it, but I cannot tell you how poorly that went for me to the point that I canceled the entire website.
Oh, wow.
I was done with it.
Throw the whole thing away.
Just start over. Maybe I'll start another website one day, but no, absolutely not.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. So I agree with you. I think a lot of the review sites skew negative because they know that we have this like voyeuristic kind of society where people want to watch the train wreck.
Sure.
They want to log on, and they find these unique ways, like these like power reviewers that they like empower these
like
people.
verified reviewers.
They make they get these angry, bitter people to like be the preferred reviewer, and
Well,
they
think
go and they
about
just
it. If
shred restaurants. I'm like, come
Absolutely.
on.
If their business model is restaurants basically paying a protection racket to like keep your stars up, then why on earth would they prioritize good reviews?
That's exactly right. I mean, Better Business Bureau is actually not that dissimilar. They will allow you to advertise. Any review engine that allows advertising is a little bit.
It's a conflict
suspect.
of interest.
It's a conflict of interest. I mean, you know, I think Zillow is a little different. We're not going to go down the rabbit hole with the real estate industry, but I don't know, man. Consumers definitely read that stuff, though.
Absolutely.
I mean, TripAdvisor and Yelp and, you know, anywhere you can find them.
I do it too. I read it. I won't get into the reviews. I won't read them specifically. But if I'm looking for the best Mediterranean cuisine, I'll Google it and Yelp will pop up, and I'll look and this one's got 4.5 stars. People seem to really like it. I guess I'll go there. You know,
how much attention do you pay to maybe like local sources of like reviewing and like critiquing? Like I think of like Leo and other, you know, Louisville-based publications that do pieces on restaurants and stuff. Is that stuff important to your image, and do you cater to that sort of thing, or is it kind of the same category?
For sure, all of that stuff's important. I really like the Leo. Well, full disclosure, I write for the Leo too.
Okay.
But so, you know, I'm not going to obviously talk them up like their premier publication, but I like them a lot. They do really good work. The Courier does good work. The local stuff's more important than the national stuff, because the local stuff is what is going to inevitably bring customers to your restaurant and pay your bills. You know.
So do you pay attention to the national stuff? Like you said, you don't read your reviews, but like, I mean, if tomorrow you woke up and you needed to move more product, and would you look at that, or is that just fundamentally against what you're trying to accomplish with your restaurant?
I'd look at anything, man. Honestly, I would. And
so it's capitalistic.
Yeah, definitely. And I do read the reviews. I don't read the Yelp ones, but I do read the reviews. But I have a strict no response policy at this point, because I'm a human and I'm stressed out sometimes. And if you catch me on a bad day and you leave me a bad review and I think it's wrong, like, I'm going to get mad and I don't know what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
You know, as humans, we don't always have the self-control to look at something and take a step back from it first.
Trust me, dude. I mean, we spend a lot of time coaching our agents here on how to deal with, you know, tense communication and conflict and all that. And it's just because we're in this gotcha kind of society. Like everybody's looking for a reason to run somebody else down, especially when you're courageous enough to put yourself out there and provide a product or service. It's tough. It's fundamental to being in business. It's a necessary skill to have. So, okay. So, let's talk a little bit more about Louisville.
Okay.
If we could.
Do you care if I kick this? Because I have a specific question.
You go right ahead. I think I know where you're going.
I'm just curious, as someone who's in the restaurant industry and has been for a while, and you don't have to, if you don't want to name specific places, you don't have to. But I'm wondering, when you're not at your own restaurant and you're trying to get something different, like where are the places that you find yourself gravitating to in town? Like it doesn't. If it's not specific restaurants, I would just love to know what your take on, you know, Louisville's dining scene is, as someone who's a part of it.
I love Louisville's dining scene. It's so eclectic.
Yeah.
And I have my favorite restaurants. You know, Harvest, one of my favorites.
Oh yeah,
Harvest.
It's so good. Butchertown Grocery, incredible. I like Royal's Hot Chicken. I eat there more than probably anywhere else in the city. I eat there all the time, maybe 3 days a week. But honestly, like when you cook all day or you deal with some aspect of food all day, the thought of food kind of doesn't appeal to you anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm just starting to like enjoy actual restaurants again, because most chefs eat like trash. We'll shove something in our face over a trash can in the kitchen between shifts, you know, or stop by Chick-fil-A on the way in. Shout out to Chick-fil-A, actually. It's really good.
Local restaurant scene, Chick-fil-A's on the list.
No, but I have a ton of friends who do a lot of cool stuff, who I'm really proud of, and it seems like most of the people that I was cooking with when we were all just cooking in the kitchen together are now executive chefs somewhere, or they are opening their own places, and that's awesome to see. So I really try to support the people that support me as well. And I think that's really important for people to remember, is, you know, where your dollar goes matters. If
you were going to shout out a restaurant here in Louisville that you don't think gets enough love, or a place that you were, like, if you were going to say this was like Louisville's best kept secret is this place, do you have a place in mind?
The Fat Lamb. and Cafe Toy Vaughn, which is off of Outer Loop. It's really It's really good. It's the best pho I've ever had in my life. Anyway, it's super, super good.
Never heard of it.
I've never heard of it either.
We're going to have to.
And off of Outer Loop, you wouldn't think that would necessarily be like a huge dining destination either.
It's not. It's in a strip mall. It's cash only. It's a really dingy place.
Man, some of my favorite places are cash only.
Yeah. They've got carpet from like 1982, and like a 12-year-old greets you when you walk in, but the food is so good. It's amazing. Really love that place. Really recommend that. There was this little chef-driven roast beef place right behind my house called Top Round Roast Beef.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so sad that they closed. That was one of my favorite places.
I couldn't believe it either. It was a West Coast concept.
Yeah, I was about to say there's a couple of them.
Literally, the first location on the East Coast was Louisville, and I couldn't believe. I heard it was amazing. I never made it.
It was really good. I really like Louvino. I like the Louvino guys and what they're doing. I think they've got like 5 or 6 restaurants now.
There's the one out here in the East End now on Blankenbaker Parkway, like right there at the corner of Blankenbaker and Shelbyville. I don't know if I know the original in the Highlands is still there.
Yeah, it is. It's really good too.
I don't know what else they have in addition to those two. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Louvino.
Butchertown Pizza Hall. Have you all been there?
I've heard. I've not been there. I've heard.
Best pizza in the city.
Is it really?
Really?
Yeah, it's really good.
There's a lot of local pizza too.
There's a lot.
That's true. Yeah,
A lot of local.
There's
pizza
a lot of really good local pizza too. That's my favorite. In
Before
the city.
them, who was your? Because they've not been around a whole long time. I'm curious to know because like there's like 7 or 8 that have been around, and I'm curious what your favorite is of those.
So the guy who owns Butchertown Pizza Hall used to own Papolino's. I don't know if you remember Papolino's.
Yeah, I remember Papolino's.
Papolino's was great.
Yeah, it was.
So it's essentially the same pizza. I think Butchertown Pizza Hall is a little bigger, but the pizza at Lupo. Have you ever been to Pizza Lupo?
No.
It's really good. Also in Butchertown.
Okay.
It's like right by the police impound lot.
Yeah, I
You've
know
ever had to
exactly.
deal
I
with
know
them.
exactly where it is. I've never had to get a car out of the
I know
impound
exactly
lot,
where the
but I know where the
impound
lot
lot
is.
Yeah, that's good. The Post is really good. I really like the Post.
Yeah.
Post is good.
So yeah, I think those are my favorites, but Butchertown Pizza Hall is right down the street from me.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to
where I'm
do
going.
that soon. My wife and I have been talking about getting down there real soon. So
yeah. I'll kick it back to you because I took this line of questioning.
No. That was perfect. We've talked a lot about Louisville's restaurant scene. We've talked a lot about specific restaurants and starting a restaurant here. I mean, what about just living in Louisville? Anything?
I love living in Louisville.
I mean, you're a Louisville native.
Never left.
Never left.
Wanted to. When I was like 19, my friend Zach and I had this idea that we were gonna put our backpacks on and we were gonna go over to Europe.
Just go.
And we were gonna work through these different hostels where you'd basically work and they'd give you food and board and you can go see stuff. But then I found out my son was on the way and I never ended up leaving. And honestly, I don't think I ever will. I love Louisville so much. I grew up in Germantown, Butchertown, those areas. We moved around a lot, but I've seen most parts of this city. I had my first serious girlfriend lived just out here in Copperfield, just down the street from where we are now.
Yeah.
The people here are super welcoming in general.
Agreed.
You really don't have bad experiences anywhere in the city as long as you're not a jerk.
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
true.
You go to cities like New York, and I'm not gonna dump on major cities or anything, but when I was up in New York, I would smile at somebody, and they look at me like,
"Who are you?" Yeah,
why are you looking at me like that? And it's like, well, I don't know. That's just what you do. Where I'm from, you're pleasant to people. You know. I think that,
there's an ulterior motive. You've got something. You've got an issue if you're
something.
smiling at people.
Yeah, we have trees here.
Yeah.
That's incredible. We have like actual patches of green in this city. It's spread out enough, and there's cool stuff in enough places. But yeah, I just love Louisville, man. I don't think I'll ever go. I really don't think I ever will. I don't have any desire to. Maybe when I retire. I
think
know.
one big testament to your love of Louisville that we've talked about a lot is the nonprofit that you are a part of and have championed a little bit. Why don't you talk about that? I'll let you kind of lead the way on that.
Sure. I'm on the board of a nonprofit that my really good friend Leo Braddock runs. It's called Children Shouldn't Hunger. It's fairly new. We're on year 3 now, and it's starting to pick up, and it's starting to get a bit more expansive. But the idea behind this nonprofit is to address food insecurity as well as at-risk youth. So we have a variety of different programs in the works, whether it's, we have garden space at Ivy Tech and in the West End. We're trying to work on putting up a storefront so that once we're growing all of our produce, we have a place to give it to people. We are working on a culinary program that is not a for-profit. No offense to Sullivan. Sullivan's great. They turn out great cooks, and I like what they do over there, but it's for profit. We want to do a nonprofit school of cookery where you can learn how to make money and cook and take care of your family. This program will send somebody through like 18 different restaurants 1 month at a time. So you get 18 different experiences, 18 different cuisines, and you get paid for it rather than paying for it. You know, Sullivan costs $48,000 a year. That's insane. If you go there, you graduate with that debt and you're going to go make $10 an hour. It's what's going to happen. And that's the same with every culinary school. It's not Sullivan.
Well, it's higher education. It's higher education altogether. Absolutely. But that's a whole other thing that we're probably not going to unpack today.
So we're trying to address the West End is entirely a food desert. There's nothing you have to drive at least 6, 7, 8 miles to get a vegetable, you know?
Yeah.
And what if you don't have a car? How are you going to get there? Our public transportation sucks. That's not getting you there. So we're trying to do some things there, and we're trying to promote some servant leadership. Invest in your community by going and working in this garden for an hour, seeing how things grow, nurture something, and then take it home and eat it.
Yeah, that's
eat
cool.
a vegetable. You know, don't eat McDonald's. It's not good for you.
That's a whole nother thing, and we've experienced it quite a bit. And you know, back in my days of liquidating bank foreclosure, I did a lot of work in the West End. Unfortunately, that's where a lot of them are. And we have literally vacant city blocks in this city. I mean, we're not Detroit, but I mean, it's pretty crazy. I mean, there's no grocery stores.
No.
There's very little public transportation options. I mean, fast food is like their way of life.
Yeah, and like that'll fill you up, but that won't nurture you. That won't fill you up. So that's something that I'm pretty passionate about because people deserve to be able to eat a vegetable. You know, like
what a quote too. I feel like that'll make it into the notes too.
People deserve to be able to eat a vegetable.
Yeah, it should be a basic human right. You know,
what are involvement opportunities like? Is this the kind of thing that people that are listening, if they've got similar passions and direction, that they donate to, or is there a way to volunteer their time? What would be best from your perspective?
They can do all of those things. If you go to childrenshouldn'thunger.com, you can also send an email to Leo Braddock at childrenshouldn'thunger.org. There are tons of opportunities to get involved, whether you are you own commercial real estate, say, and you have some garden space that's available, even if it's a quarter acre. That's helpful. You know, you can donate time, you can donate money. There are a lot of different opportunities. We do a lot of different cool stuff. We do lots of events. We do galas. We do service industry things. But like I said, we're really now starting to hit the ground and starting to do some different things. So those opportunities will expand.
Absolutely, and we'll get links and all the information in the show notes and posted so that everybody listening can kind of engage with that as they will. I mean that's pretty awesome because I mean I think it should be top of mind for any business person to service should be. I mean you should do for yourself, but you should do for others, and you know, creating an impact on the community that you hope to serve, that you hope will support you in return. I mean, I think that's a big thing.
And this is why I decided I didn't want to be a chef anymore. I don't want to be a chef. I want to be a restaurateur because I don't want a billion recipes. I want $1 billion, and I don't say that selfishly.
Yeah.
I say that I can't help you by giving you a recipe.
No.
How I can help you is I can invest my time and my money into helping my community and the people that I share a city with and that I see every day and that I live with.
Sure.
It doesn't make any sense that there's this supreme break at 9th Street where there are tons of options and then you hit 9th Street and there's nothing after that.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. There's no reason for it, and no amount of slapping art on the overpass is going to help it. I'm not going to jump into politics because that's just what
we touched on this in the last episode. We talked about this, and literally, like, the only way that they could have in most, I don't want to get too deep, but if they'd put the soccer stadium down there, we might have gotten some more people to go down there.
It would have been helpful.
But I mean, it's in Butchertown, and everybody likes Butchertown too. So, I mean, I get it. It's just it's an unfortunate problem.
It is.
That wasn't created overnight, and it's not going to get fixed overnight.
I agree. And my other major irritation with this, before I'll stop ranting about what's going on in the West End, is we just paid $10 million for a new track. We, the taxpayers, for a new track. And you're telling me that our government can't help subsidize some sort of grocery? I'm not talking about a Kroger, but some sort of grocery in the West End. You can't help with that a little bit, you know? And it's just those things that really irritate me. So it shouldn't fall. Honestly, it should not fall onto nonprofits to do this. However, we are happy to do it, and we want to. Yeah. So go to childrenshouldn'thunger.com, basically. Yeah. And there are ways to get involved if you'd like to. We'd love it. We're a very small nonprofit, very tight-knit. There's 6 of us on the board, plus Leo, who started the nonprofit. So we'd love to walk you through how you could help, and we'd love your help.
Definitely, we'll direct everybody that we talk to. We'll get all this stuff up on the site and on the show notes and everything. So I'm going to pivot just a little bit, okay, and we can kind of close up with this. I know we've taken probably enough of your time today. So Mirin's doing well.
It is
second location, different concept, third restaurant, right? Third, coming out soon. Look a few years down the road, because I mean, what do they say that like the cliche thing about restaurants is that a certain percentage close within 5 years or whatever? Like you're 3 years into Mirin, right?
That's absolutely true.
Okay, so I got to feel like you're on pretty solid footing there.
I feel like we are.
Okay, and so I can only expect that potentially there's some growth kind of ideas there as well.
Absolutely.
Look forward 5 years from today. What's out there for you?
Let's see. 5 years from today, I will have a 15-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 7-year-old. Hopefully, I've got a couple of restaurants in 5 years, a couple of more. I don't think I could do too many, man. I think my cap's probably 8.
8 restaurants?
And then ideally, I would love to sell them all and volunteer my time and write for a living. Cool. I love restaurants and I love what I do, but what you said is absolutely correct. Restaurants have a shelf life.
Yeah.
But more than that, restaurateurs have a shelf life.
Sure.
Interesting.
And, that the game will pass you by. It's a young man's game. I don't want to be staring at 40 still, figuring out why my cooler is broken or why my HVAC's about to fall through the ceiling. Like I don't want to do that. I'll always love food, and I want to. And I say that now, but I would sell all those restaurants, and within a year, I'd open up another one because I love it.
Well, it's because it's about the process. It's not the product.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
I mean, you just talked about and I can see this. Chefs don't. They make these, amazing creations, and then they eat something over the trash can.
That's exactly true.
You have to
go home and microwave something.
Yeah, something. Anyway, no, that's cool. I mean, being in love with the process is not a bad thing.
Sure. Yeah. And you know what? I was always in love with the process, and I loved. I was a part of so many restaurant openings before I ever opened a restaurant, and I loved that. But I get burnt out really quick because I'd work myself to death.
Sure.
Sure.
But I'm starting to be in love with the day-to-day of it, too. Like, I do enjoy what I do every day. I enjoy seeing my employees, and I love popping from restaurant to restaurant and looking at the numbers on a spreadsheet. Like, I'm starting to actually actively enjoy that. However, I don't want to do it forever, man.
Yeah, I totally get it. I always say I want to work because I want to, not because I have to. So, if you ask me the question, I'm trying to get to a place where I don't need the money.
Sure.
I'm just trying to get to a part where the finances take care of themselves, and I get to do what I really enjoy, and I can make that choice on a day-to-day basis because I know I'll never be done.
No,
sure.
Yeah, same. Same. I've always got to be doing something. I did recently get married, so in 5 years, hopefully, we'll still be doing that.
Oh, congratulations!
I'm sure
That's
we will
good.
be.
There's a thing about a certain percentage of those that last 5 years too. I think.
Marriage and restaurants were probably pretty
I made
similar.
it past 7, so I think I'm in the clear, right? And it's the 7-year itch, and what they say?
Our marriage was kind of like the way I opened restaurants. We didn't overthink it. We
did it.
We decided we were going to do it, and a couple days later, we flew out to Vegas and we got married.
There you go.
That's awesome.
It was awesome.
I did the whole big wedding thing. My wife and I did, and I think at the end of it, we both kind of were just like, you know what, we could have just did this thing and just been done.
Yeah, who was that for?
Yeah.
I hear that
It's
from
for
a lot of
everybody
different
else.
people.
Yeah.
But I mean, I got, we were a lot younger, so I mean, it's what you do. You go to college, you get married, you have kids, and that kind of thing. It's
Sure.
before you start really thinking for yourself, you know.
Sure.
But anyway, Griffin, that's all I got, man. I appreciate you making the time for us today.
No, thank you all.
Coming and educating us about children shouldn't hunger and your restaurants and love for Louisville. It was a good time.
Yeah.
Gabe, you got anything to add?
I just really appreciate you making time. I think it's a great conversation, and I think it's one we'll probably look back on a lot too, and be directing people to as the show goes on, as we talk to more Louisville business owners and entrepreneurs, and I think the restaurant scene is one of the things that Louisville people are always going to be interested in. So I really appreciate you being our first restaurateur, as you said,
of course,
to be on the show and to give your take. So
yeah, I need a text. I need a text message when it's public knowledge. On the new restaurant.
Is
Can
there a
we do
name?
that?
Is there a name? Is the name public knowledge?
The name is a work in progress.
Okay, it's all good. I just want to know when I can come get some chicken. That's what I want to know.
We're saying 8 weeks at most.
8 weeks.
We're
All
saying
right.
probably
Okay.
July 1.
Cool.
I'm gonna be on the lookout.
We're gonna have Gabe and I are gonna have a little lunch. You open lunch?
We will be, yeah.
Road trip?
I'm gonna ask
No
Bobby.
6-packs at lunch.
No. Well, I'll ask
maybe just
Bobby
a one
for
pack.
Maybe just a one.
Oh,
Maybe
one.
a single. Anyway. All right. Well, thank you all, folks, again for tuning into the second episode of the OUR502 podcast. For Griffin Paulin and Gabe Pruitt, I'm Jay Pitts. Thanks. We'll be back soon.
Thanks.